Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Bench Your Addiction with Greg and Ryan. Today, we're going to talk about the benefits of lifting as we age. And let's go ahead and start with Greg's story. So I think that's a good story.
Yeah, so yesterday, so I'm doing this cross country move, and yesterday was the day that my truck was supposed to be picked up. Actually, through a series of events, it was supposed to be this morning, and then it turned into, hey, driver's already here. We pick it up tonight. So cool. I don't think anything of it. I don't think anything's wrong. I hop in the truck to come home after work, and I try to throw my truck in the drive, and the column shifter broke. So not going to go into all of the nitty gritty. If you want to know what that is, and look it up. But ultimately, I had to get underneath the dashboard of my truck like you would to get under your sink and jam my right arm up into this really tight space. And my feet were on the ground, my back was on the floorboard, and I was holding this glute bridge with a twisted spine, and I was like reached up and flashlight trying to move it with my left hand so I could see what I'm doing. And tell you what, man, I know several people who have aged not so gracefully that even by this time in their life, I'm only 31, would have struggled with maintaining that position, holding that position, or even getting into that position in the first place. And God bless the guy that helped me out. But this guy didn't age very well either. Didn't do a whole hell of a lot to take care of his body. He had all the tools I needed, but like there was no way that he can get down onto his knees and then back up, partly because both of his knees are replaced. Because he didn't take care of himself. Like he didn't in his 20s and 30s wasn't thinking about being 65, because a lot of people don't have that mindset of, I want to be doing this for a while. A lot of people just think, I'm going to be like Ronnie Coleman, load up as heavy a deadlift as I can, and we're going to compete at the Olympia a week later or whatever. And look where that got him. Greatest bodybuilder of all time, man. Like, or so I'm told. I don't know. But he did what he did, but he's also now having to live the way that he has to live because he treated his body that way. And I've had the benefit of working with a lot of people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s who didn't take care of their bodies, but were relatively well off, were okay, but they were dealing with this knee pain or that back pain or that shoulder pain or whatever, and help them walk through that and get to the other side. And I've also had mentors like Ben Pekulski, who has talked about, or at least used to talk about, the importance of training with your brains, not just with your balls, right? Like it's not just about going in, trying to nut up, and we're just going to kill it every single workout like I used to.
Yeah, I used
Like
to
I
do
used to
that.
think.
Yeah,
A
I
lot of
used
people
to do
think that. A lot of people think that. And I think it's only getting worse with so many people advocating it, who have a six-pack advocating it on social media. That's what people see. That's what people think fitness is. But ultimately, like you've talked about, you just want to be able to go into your older age and not have anybody help you off the toilet.
Yeah, man.
Like, I want to die with all the original parts. Like,
Yep.
I don't want a bionic shoulder. I don't want a new knee. I don't want a replaced hip. Like, if I can, God willing, and a little bit of forethought, I'll make sure that my knees are good into old age, my hips are good, my shoulders are good, because like I honestly have this visual of me being this 90-year-old crazy great grandfather who speaks like Rafiki from The Lion King. You just don't really understand what he's talking about until you understand what he's talking about. And like I'm helping my great grandchildren learn how to climb trees and shit. So that's kind of what I want to do as I get older. So like my workouts are emphasized. Of course, I still want to perform. I still want to do that 500-pound deadlift when the time is right. But I'm not going to do that at the expense of my longevity. I don't want to be 70 years old, completely paralyzed or having a hard time getting around with my replaced joints but at least I was able to deadlift 500 pounds. I did it like a jackass, but I did it. It's not what I want.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way. Like you brought up, like my long-term goal is to never be helped off a toilet, right? Like that's like a real fitness goal, right? And then when I talk to some clients about that, they're like, "Oh man, you're right." Especially older clients. I have a couple 80-year-old clients, and we do simulations for them to get up. You know what I mean? Get up off the toilet, right? One of them had a knee replacement already, and so we specifically work on that because sometimes the public toilets are low and they're brutal on her. And so I see it in real time. I'm like, man, all right, so this is something you got to think about, focus on, and like these are some of the benefits of lifting throughout your life, right? And like really before I got serious about my fitness journey, like I probably would have struggled to get up under your car, when I was 29, 30, when I was overweight. It would have been a hassle. Like I was active, but like that's how I justified it all the time. I was like, oh, I still do stuff all the time. I still get like 30,000 steps in a day as a chef, but I struggle to get up and down. And, it's like the older we get, the harder it becomes. Like my friend has a master's in kinesthesiology, and he said if he could sum it all up in one sentence, his entire master's like study and all that stuff, it's use it or lose it. That's literally his entire like 8 years of schooling. Use it or lose it. That's it. And
Yeah.
he's like, it's really like, especially as you age and get older, it's harder to get back to that point, right? It doesn't mean you can't, but it just means that there's going to be more work involved. And I just saw a recent study about it was some 70 something year old who just deadlifted like 400 or 500 pounds, right? And so he's like a pretty serious competitor. And so they did a bone density test on him. And so people, I forget the exact metric, but basically like 2.5 to 2.7 on this scale was in the top 95 percentile of like
Yeah.
bone density for people his age. He was like 4 metrics higher. He was like 5.7 or 6 point something. Like his bone density was so much denser, like because he lifted weights regularly. And he didn't lift weights his entire life. He only started when he was 55. So even starting at 55 and lifting into your 70s, he had seen a huge increase in bone density, which severely reduces his risk of like breaking bones or like having to have things replaced because they break, right? And it's like, okay, cool. So this is like real time actual strategy, like science about like the bone density and like how it will increase your life. And I recently started listening to Outlive by Peter. Oh, I'm blanking on his last name. I'll post in the comments, Dr. Peter or something. And anyway, he talks a lot about all of this stuff, right? Like there's lifespan and then there's health span, right? Like cool, we live longer and later into our 70s and 80s. A lot of times those last 10 years for the majority of people, it's pretty brutal. They can't do the things they love. They start to have mental decline. And so he talks a lot about like how to extend our health span as well as our lifespan, and how lifting and working out and eating correctly are going to help extend that like ability to do the things you love the rest of your life, right? Like it would suck to work to 70, 65 and retire and not be able to do the things I love, right? And spend those last 10, 15, 20 years just watching TV or doing whatever people do, like it would drive me crazy. I'm way too active for that, right? Like I want to be running into I saw like a Guinness World Book of Records, the world's oldest bodybuilder recently.
Yeah.
He's 91. My first thought was I got to beat that. It wasn't like, oh, cool. I was like, I can do that. Let's do that. You know what I mean? And like, he was joking about how all he had to do to win was just live longer because now he has no one in his competition range. But
It's true.
it still was. I was like, all right, cool, man. I can see that. I want to do that. Right?
Yeah. So it's the freaking Roger Bannister moment, man. Like it's when like before Bannister, like nobody, it was believed that no human would ever run a mile under 4 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then after he did that, very many people in quick succession broke that 4 minute barrier.
Yeah.
He made it possible in the minds of other people. Just like now, like after, Eddie Hall leading up to his 500 kilo deadlift, forever people were like, nope, never going to happen. Never. There's no way any human body can ever pick up and control 500 kilos. And now everyone's freaking talking about 505.
Yep.
Because they think it's possible, because Eddie Hall made it possible, right? And like, could you imagine like that story with Eddie Hall? Like he did I think it was like a 35 pound or 35 kilo PR to get that 500 kilos. Like I think his PR prior to pulling that in 2016
Something like
was
that, yeah.
465, and like and then like he picks it up and like he's just this gigantic bowling ball hippopotamus of a person, and you can see the close up on his face. He's just like he's got no eyes because he's just carrying so much weight, but he's looking around with a little bit of blood coming out of his nose, and he's like then
Yeah.
he puts it down, and he nearly collapses, and or he does collapse actually, and
Yeah.
like then he's medically, like he has to medically be taken care of, and you see the visual of his wife freaking out because oh crap, like is he okay? Because
Yeah.
he just did something that nobody thought was possible, and not only that, that bar moved fast. Like
Yeah.
to
I like
think of
that too.
like to think of the weight itself, and like he sets into that wedge, and then boom, it comes up off the ground, and like he slows down a little bit to the lockout, but manages to get it, and then looks around. Like I don't remember the guy's name. I'll have to look it up, but I think this guy was either the first or second human to ever squat over 1,000 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
This power lifter, and he squats it. And as soon as he squats it, like of course everyone, like his spotters are panicking because they're like, he just has it, like he has 1,000 pounds on his back. It's freaking wild. So his
Mm-hmm.
spotters try to walk him back to the rack, and you hear in this video this guy saying, "Let me hold it." Like he doesn't want to rack it yet. He's like, "Let me hold it." Like he just wants to
Hold
feel it. And then now we have people squat over
Routinely.
1,000 pounds all the time.
Routinely, yeah.
Yeah, because it's no
Yeah, like
longer
Greg Williams for a while kept breaking his own record.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's like seeing people do this for a long time opens up the possibility for others to believe in themselves that they can do it, or you can see yourself doing bodybuilding until you're 92
Yeah.
because of the guy that did it until he's 91.
Yeah.
Right? And like I can see people like Mark Felix. I'm never going to compete at the level that Mark Felix competed at, but he was well into his 50s. I think he's 56
When he broke
at
his
the
record.
last time he competed at the World's Strongest Man qualifiers.
Yeah.
I don't think he made it to the finals, but he's 56 years old and did enough to qualify for the World's Strongest Man qualifiers. And like to this day, nobody can beat his grip.
Yeah.
He still holds the Hercules
The Hercules
hold
Yeah,
record.
he broke that record in his 50s too, right? Like
Yeah, he did.
substantially, like by like 30 seconds, like something
Yeah.
insane. Yeah, I remember
like
watching that. I was like, what the fuck?
I
Yeah.
think he held it for 131.
Yeah, and the previous record was like a minute or something.
The previous record to that was like 102.
Yeah, yeah.
102 or something like that. And like you can hear in that video, you can hear the whatever his name is, they're at the Royal Albert Hall in London or England or wherever in England it is, and like you can hear the announcer going like, "Wow!" Like what is he doing?
Yeah.
So, but because of people like Mark Felix, I don't think it's much of a goal. I mean, it is a goal, but like I don't think it's very far out of the range for me to be able to do strongman competitions until I'm 40 or thereafter, because Felix and guys like him have paved the way.
Yeah, and like, I want to be fully functional. I still want to be lifting weights and running and doing more things. And like, I'm thinking about the long term. Like you said, you know what I mean? Like I realized recently that I'm not a fan of running, so I probably should start doing it because I'm not good at it, right? You know what I mean? So I've been running again lately, and like, it sucked. Like I ran like a 5K on Thanksgiving, and I was like, all right, I can do it. I can still do it. I don't really enjoy it, but I can still do it, right? And so now I'm just gonna get back into that, right? Because I want to be running and jumping, and I've been running more and more with my kid, and he's 6, so he gets about half a mile. But like half a mile is better than a lot of people I know. When I told my friend that he can run half a mile, they're like, I can't run half a mile. And I was like, oh, maybe you should run with my kid then, like.
Right.
But like, I've been running more because I want to get him into it and get him on these healthy habits, right? And like, I've been thinking a lot about this, like long-term stuff. Like now that I'm a father, like, I spend all day correcting adults' habits, right? And like, how much more beneficial would it be if we just worked more with kids, right? Like, we worked more with kids and worked more with correcting their habits and their eating habits when they're younger, and their exercise habits, and like getting them on board on that kind of thing. So that way, when they're older, it's just natural. It's just what they do, right? Like humans are meant to run. Humans are meant to lift. Humans are meant to be outside and be active. Like that's my opinion. And it's just like like you spend all day too as a trainer. It's like we build all these horrible habits as we age because convenience, right? Like, oh, I don't have time to eat, so I'll just eat takeout. Oh, I don't have time to, work out because I got a long job. Like whatever reason people tell themselves that they don't have time to do this, when really they just need to make time. Otherwise, their body's going to start making time for them. With
Right.
ailments and getting sick and feeling better. And so, I'm thinking more about like how to like help kids exercise more, how to get them into sports, how to work with those younger athletes and get them eating right, and like what that looks going forward. So I don't know where that's going to lead me, but I've been thinking about that a lot lately.
No, so like two things popped in my head as you were saying that. Like I was blessed very early on in my training career to train this woman, and I'm not, for anonymity's sake, I won't name her, but um, I remember her coming into the gym that I worked at the time and saying, I have time and I have money, but I don't have my health and I want it back. And because this is where like your physical health definitely contributes to and is a staple foundation for your mental, spiritual, and emotional health. And like that, it all works together. We're all one unit. So you can't necessarily subdivide 100% physical health over here, mental health over here. Like it all works together. It's this interconnected, very dynamic, complex structure that we live in. But this is a woman that had a life-changing injury, and as a result, like had to. She's in one of those few injuries where you have to bed rest for a little while, even though most cases, like bed rest is not the way to go, but she had to for a little while. And then when that period of time was over, she just didn't have anything or anyone or any motivation to go, to get up, to do. No accountability, no education around it. And so she didn't. And she let that go on for a while. And then she realized one day how freaking miserable she was because of how you mentioned earlier, like getting older and you give up these things that you love. And as a result, I think when you give up the things that you love, you age even faster, which is why there are people that can retire and then within a year they drop dead because they've lost purpose, they've lost passion, they've lost drive, they've lost motivation. And like when life doesn't have any reason to live, it'll die shortly thereafter. Like like a dog going out into the woods. Like dog knows it's going to die, so dog goes off, finds a comfortable place or whatever, and dies if given the opportunity. Right. So if you don't give life this reason or purpose, then you will die, and you'll probably die before you take your last breath, which sounds like hell on earth. And um, I never want to get there. So like I was blessed with that. She ultimately made I'll say a full recovery, and she was able to go back. She hiked the Tahoe Trail,
Nice.
even though she had decided before she started working with me, she had decided that was a bucket list item that she was never going to be able to cross off. We worked for a year and a half intensively, several times a week. She was doing her own stuff. And like a year and a half later, she was able to go back and check that off, and like the exhilaration that she had as a result of being able to accomplish that was absolutely euphoric to me to see that, right? But like it's definitely foreboding and a warning. Like anything that's happened to another human being can happen to me if I allow those things to happen. And I stop consciously making decisions and I start to subconsciously fall into bad patterns or habits, that's kind of how people end up relapsing after a considerable amount of clean time or sober time or whatever words you want to use. And like, you just get complacent, and
Yep.
complacency kills without a doubt. And it's a slow death most of the time. But the other side of that, to kind of liven it up a little bit, was like with the kids, I used to do swim coaching, and the demographic of kids that I coached mostly were in middle school age, 12 to 14-ish, 11 to 14, give or take. Primarily, that was the biggest group of kids that I coached. And like, I'm going to use this one kid as an example. Extremely talented swimmer, and his parents found out I was also a personal trainer, so they had him start doing some workouts with me. And when he started training with me, squatting with a round back, didn't really understand the concept of a hinge, the stuff that we always see with an untrained individual. Doesn't matter how old you are. Like, if you don't know how to hinge, then good luck trying to hinge properly, right? Without, takes time. But anyway, so when he started with me, looked a little bit goofy, a little bit more than a little bit, but he looked goofy as he was trying to move. Because kids don't have any proprioceptive awareness. They don't know where their body is in space, really. They haven't lived long enough to really figure that out, especially at 12 years old.
Yeah, especially
Yeah, so 6 months of training, that's all he did with me. But in that 6 months time, he squatted perfectly. He understood the mechanics of a squat, which means that he inherently knew the mechanics of a hinge. Because squat is a vertical translation of a barbell or of a weight, right? And so you have to be able to tie these components of movement all together. That happened for him at 12 years old. Compare that to me, who at 18, going into a college weight room, was the first time I ever got under a freaking barbell. I was goofy as hell, man. I had no idea what I was doing. And and also, of course, a lot of strength and conditioning programs do not have the appropriate education behind them. It's just printed out workout card, go do this.
Yeah.
It's not like a technique seminar or teaching or instruction. Not what I got. What I got was, here's your workout, go do it. And what happens when you put a bunch of 18-year-old guys next to each other on a bench press? With no direction and no coaching. So of course we just pay attention and listen to the guy that's the strongest. But goofy, man. I couldn't squat. I couldn't do anything properly. I hurt my back deadlifting, because why the hell a distance swimmer was deadlifting? Why? I don't know. But compare what I had, 18 years old, trying to figure it out at the collegiate level, or this kid, 12 years old, knows how to do it perfectly and can take that into high school lifting rooms, weight rooms, and then ultimately up to college. He's so much better off as a result, and he's going to be a lot stronger. He's going to be a lot more athletic. He's going to be a lot healthier after college. Or at least it's all set up there. I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know. Everyone's life goes a different direction, but at least he has that foundation, man.
Yep.
I would have loved to have that kind of foundation at that age now. But that's just not my story. And but if we go to the kids, man, that's what holds the future. But the thing is, you can't give something you don't have. So if you just live in crappy habits,
Yep.
or even if you're in the weight room and you only focus on weight, then you're just perpetuating the problem that already exists. Weight only really fucking matters if you're a powerlifter or a strongman, competitor. Otherwise, these kids would be so much better off with having people to look up to that are talking about execution, feeling. Are you feeling the parts of your body you're supposed to be feeling? When you do this RDL, are you feeling your hamstrings and glutes? Or do you feel like your lower back is going to pop out of place?
And because when
I started doing RDLs, man, nobody asked me that. They were just like, put another 25 on it.
Yeah. Man, I remember I can't tell you how many times I squatted until my back went out, and I was like, they're like, did you feel your quads? I was like, no, my back hates me. We warmed up with 300 pounds. I don't know what to tell you, man.
Stupid.
Stupid shit, right? But and so I think, for me at least, I want to figure out like how that's gonna look good. But like, it's working with my kid, right? Like, I think I've told you the story before where like his teacher last year sent me a picture of him running an exercise class for kindergartners. He was teaching him how to do push-ups and like squats and like how to stretch. And I was like, did he do like, was this prompted? And she was just like, no, he just wanted to teach them. And I was like, and like, I don't make him work out, but he just always is ready to work out. And like, it's really fun, like doing stuff like when I'm doing posing, he'll come in and pose with me and be like, I want to pose. And he'll like hit the poses with me. And he hit like a tricep pose and he had a little muscle, he had a little line. And he was like, Daddy, I have a muscle. I have a muscle. And started like running around the house. I have a muscle. And I was so I can't wait until he's just a little bit older. I'm gonna start taking him to the gym with me at 4 a.m. I don't know if he's gonna like it, but whatever. We'll get there. Um, but like really, it's just by osmosis, right? If we live healthier lives, our kids are gonna live healthier lives, and the next generation will live healthier lives, right? Like because that's we do what we see, right? And it's like when I talk to people about that who are parents about those kind of like mindsets around like the way they talk about their food and the way they talk about eating, you see it really click. And I'm like, when you talk about yourself that way, do your parents' voice still live in your head? And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, okay, you have a small kid, right? You have a small child. Do you think the way you talk about yourself right now, about the way you eat and the way you take care of yourself is going to live in their head? And then you see it just click and they're like, oh, this needs to change, right? This needs to change now, right? I can't talk this way about how I eat or how I look, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's pretty much it, man. How do we live healthier lives? How many benefits are there to lifting? I mean, we could list them for hours, right? Like increased length of life, increased bone density, better heart rate, better everything, man. You feel better. Lift weights. Everybody should lift weights. I got like
They
two
should,
80-year-old farms lifting weights regularly. There's not a lot of weight, but they're lifting and they're moving. They're grooving.
Yeah.
That's what matters. Man, I think we're gonna end it here. Yeah, man. Are you moving this week?
I'm ready.
All right, man. All right, guys. Well, thanks everybody for checking out today. All right, have a good week.
Peace.